Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Grid Live Encore, our season finale for 2022. For the final time, I'm Ben Schneider alongside our regular F2 and F3 analyst Joshua Birch, and Brandon Crossland joins us as well for our last show of the year. Gentlemen, how are you doing tonight?
Doing incredibly well. Last show of the year already for the Encore. Wow, it's been a fun year in Junior Series as well. And F2 is the only thing we got to talk about, really, but there's a lot that happened.
Yeah, it's been a great maiden voyage, and it's been a lot of fun this whole time. And thank Grid so much for the opportunity to join the team, and can't wait for 2023.
Well, I see a day in my life is here in the chat room, so welcome one of our regular viewers. Yes, this is the last show for 2022 for the Encore program. There may be a couple of roundtables upcoming, and I don't know if Kobe's got any plans for Grid tonight, if any major news breaks during the offseason, but we will keep you informed on that front. Just follow Grid Ranking on all of our social media platforms, as we always remind you to do at the end of the show, and we appreciate you being one of our regular viewers this season. It's been a lot of fun and plenty of laughs too. Yeah, I mean, we've had some really fun moments here on this program this season, and I'm sure we're going to have some more as we wrap it all up tonight. Well, Williams Racing finally officially confirmed Carlin's F2 driver Logan Sargent as their second Formula One driver for 2023. Of course, this had been provisionally announced pending his ability to qualify for an FIA super license, which he accomplished with a P4 finish in the 2022 F2 standings, adding 30 points to his name and bringing him to over 60 total, well over the 40 required. So, Brandon, I'll start with you. How significant is it Sorry, let me restart. I got to tell you guys, I'm so full of energy, but I need a break at the same time. It's been quite a year. Let me start that over here. Brandon, how significant is it for the United States to have our first full-time F1 driver since Scott Speed in 2006 and the first half of 2007?
It's a pretty big deal as the token American here, as it were. That's not the host, I guess you could say. Since Scott Speed in 06 and 07, I don't remember that. I wasn't watching Formula One at the time. Certainly, I was just sticking with NASCAR as the dumb old Southern American. But now, here in 2022, we're about to have Logan Sargent be the face of the United States on the world stage of motorsport. And it's a really big undertaking for the young man. And you look at his stats there, 27 starts, 2 wins, 2 poles, 4 podiums. And now he's going to Williams, a legendary team in Formula One. And, certainly not the fastest team, but hey, you get a spot on the grid, and that's more than some can say right now, as the availability of spots is just hasn't been there, and that's something we'll talk about a little bit later. But a lot of pressure I know has got to be on Logan, and especially with the news of Andretti Global coming here soon, maybe that'll help things out. But 3 spots for the United States on the ever increasing calendar. Now you have Las Vegas, Austin, and Miami, and so this has been something that we've wanted as Americans. Now that we're as the popularity is increasing here in the States, as this Netflix show has been working so well, we've wanted our representation, as it were, in the world stage. And it seems like every time a chance seemed like it was going to get closer to this happening, the door was shut. And almost, I've heard you say before, Ben, it almost seemed like Formula One didn't want this to happen at all. They don't, for some reason, it seems as if they don't want an American driver. And so now finally, whether they wanted it or not, the puzzle pieces have fit correctly for Logan Sargent. And it's going to be nice to see his maiden voyage in 2023, especially with 3 American dates on the calendar.
Josh, you want to take that?
I was just thinking as well, it's most important as well for the fact that for an American driver, you expect them to come in, especially this is from the Europeans' point of view. I was formulating my answer. From a European's point of view, you expect the American drivers to come in, there'll be a song and dance, and then they'll fade away. Happened with Scott Speed. I know one Pablo Montoya was Colombian, but he came in from IndyCar, shone to begin with, then faded away. Villeneuve shone to begin with, failed away as well. But with Logan Sargent, as we've said many a time on this year in this program, he's done it the European way. And I think that, as contrary to the fact that I think the super license points is a ridiculous situation as well, because IndyCar is scored less than F2 and Indy Lights and all that lot. Logan's done it the smart way, came to Europe, ran the European way of getting into the FIA systems, was a rookie in the F2 this year. As you can see, he's 27 starts out of 28. One he didn't take after a nasty crash at the Zandvoort round, so he didn't start that race. 2 wins in that time, 2 poles as well, 4 podiums. And don't forget, that's only 14 rounds where you can actually get pole position. He took 2 of them. That's quite impressive. So to do it the European way, to show what his talent is to everybody in the F1 paddock and the F2 paddock as well, he is not the stereotypical American coming in from across the pond. He's proven himself as a race winner. He's proven himself as a good open wheel racer. So that's why there's a lot of buzz around him and there's a lot of excitement about him getting into Formula One next year. And I think Liberty did in a way want an American driver in, but they did also stop it. The same way Bernie stopped it. They didn't want an American coming in that was well established for racing IndyCar and being an IndyCar champion, and bring all the fans across thinking, oh, well, this is going to be it. Say Ryan Hunter-Reay in his prime as well came over. All the IndyCar fans would be thinking, oh, this is Ryan Hunter-Reay. He's a great driver. He's a race winner. He's a champion. Blah, blah, blah. He'll be right up there fighting with Hamilton, fighting with the time, what was it, Vettel and all that lot. But that wouldn't have happened because it's a different type of car to drive. So they were scared that they would get an American driver in, do so poorly that they would actually lose American interest in the sport. So that's why they've been clever with building it up with shows like Drive to Survive, building up 3 different Grand Prix, building up the hype. And now with 3 races next year, they've brought in an American talent that is adapted to this car quite quickly, adapted to the circuits incredibly well, and can actually be competitive. So it's sort of all come at the right time. And I think finally we're going to see an American for the first time in this generation do well. Not since, what was it, Mario Andretti as well, the Italian-American. Have we really seen a driver that can come in and perform at a Formula level? So I'm very much looking forward to it.
Apologies, Josh. I just saw I left you off the script for that question, so it might have been why there was a pause there. But so it's the last show of the year. I feel like I'm not, just making.
I expected an answer.
Mistakes,
so yeah, I was expecting an answer, so I was formulating it anyway. But I was waiting for you to throw it to me.
Hey, no problem. I see you're laid back with your drink here. I got my live wire ready to go, so it's yeah.
I'm battling a throat problem. It's Abu Dhabi.
Good way to go out for our last show of the year here. Let me catch up on the chat. See our own Adam Lemmeries is here. Ben and Brandon, happy Thanksgiving, my friends, and Josh. Enjoy your time with your family.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And Adam also says it's awesome to see Logan Sargent on the F1 grid in 2023. I think we can all agree with that. You also bringing up Michael Andretti. I know, Josh, you mentioned the Andrettis as well. Michael made it through the Italian Grand Prix in 1993 driving for McLaren. I believe that was the one race he got his podium, right? And he's still the last American to score points in Formula One. Scott Speed, the last to run full-time. Alexander Rossi, the last to run, period. So several milestones, I guess, that Logan can be looking at. Might be hard for him to win a championship in the Williams. That's Mario Andretti going back to 78, the last American to do that. But we'll see how his career progresses.
I think it was 95 or one of those years as well that Andretti flipped over on the start-finish straight at Monza as well, actually thinking about it. He got a podium there, but then he did flip over, I think, a couple of years later. But that was always the funny thing with Michael. He was never really suited to F1, especially not in that dreadful couple of years that McLaren had in the after Senna left in 94, 95, 96.
Yeah, might have been. I think he was back in kart at that point, but my memory gets fuzzy, of course, but going back before the time we were born, of course. So that's you gotta dig back in the memory space, right? Yeah. Our own Casey Campbell's in the chat room as well. Hey guys, had a lot of fun being a part of the Grid Live Encore show this year. Can't wait for 2023. Also, my thoughts on ARCA East going to Flat Rock next year is that it's a great decision for all parties. Can't wait to be there for Grid Network. We'll certainly look forward to Casey's coverage. I think he's told me he's going to be at 5 or 6 races next year, so a lot of great coverage coming your way here in the ARCA Menards series. So absolutely looking forward to that. And I might have to join you, Casey, if you get out to Pocono, because I've always wanted to go there for a race. I've never been, and we'll see how the scheduling works out if I can make it to Dover again this year, because my college is usually hosting their home track meet around that time. So we'll see if the dates clash again this year. But stay tuned. We're always looking to add races to our schedules, and your support through Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee is part of what helps us to continue to do that. So we're looking forward to Casey's coverage next season. Well, Josh, staying on the note of Logan Sargent here for a little bit, I want to look forward to 2023. What do you think he can accomplish with a Williams team that has, of course, wins and championships in their past, but in recent years has really been down towards the bottom of the grid?
Well, the good thing is we discussed this a little bit yesterday as well. Williams are on the up, which is a brilliant sign as well. We've seen 3 great performances this year by 3 different drivers in the Williams team. De Vries with the incredible 9th place at Monza as well, showing that even you can just come into the car straight away and have the development and have the pace. So it's a very quick car, which is good. Albon was constantly performing throughout the year as well in the top 10s, the highest point scorer. And then Latifi managed to get 2 points as well in that rain-soaked Japan. But Latifi, as you can tell throughout the year, was the weakest link of that Williams team, has been since 2021. He did okay in 2020. 2021 was no exception as being a rookie. He suffered there. And 2022, he really has suffered. So that's why he's gone. And I think with coming in Logan Sargent, we've got another fast, aggressive driver, a Williams team that's on the up and is rebuilding itself. They've got 2 young drivers who are capable of podiums, who are going to be fighting in the mid-pack hard. I think they could be fighting Haas in the Constructors' Championship. And I'm hoping to see Williams regulars inside the top 10 in the points. And hopefully, it's not out of the realms, stealing a couple of podiums throughout the year at some rain-affected races like we saw unusual teams getting podiums this year. Only once, I think, with McLaren, they got a podium, and Emilia-Romagna. The rest of them were the top 3 teams. But remember, next year, everything closes down. Red Bull have got the penalty on the cost cap, losing 80% of their aero time, 70% because of their Constructors' Championship, then another 10% for the penalty with the cost cap. Ferrari already had a great car, just got to develop on this and get the strategy right. Mercedes have finally fixed their car as well. We've seen that the past couple of races, so they're going to be strong again. Alpine, I've got 2 new young drivers as well that are going to focus and improve on their car. AlphaTauri, I've got Nick De Vries, who's going to bring some Mercedes secret over to the team as well, so they're going to improve. Yuki Tsunoda, new teammate as well. He'll want to go out for best of the rest. Aston Martin are going to suffer as well, I'm sorry to say, but Alonso, he'll try and drag them and rebuild them in his own image, as we've seen them do. But with Lance Stroll there, they're going to suffer. Then we're going to see Alfa Romeo pretty much have a normal year. Bottas constantly in the top 9 or top 8 as well, struggling. Zhou will have his day occasionally, but still a learning curve there. And we'll see Williams versus Haas again. Haas now with Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen, an experienced lineup, but Magnussen's got more podiums because Hülkenberg's got none, so why he's coming, I don't know. That's going to be a struggle next year, I feel, for them. So Williams are the best-looking midfield team alongside the likes of Alpine and AlphaTauri to really improve. So that's a brilliant look for Sargent to go into the Williams team next year. It does look better, and already next year looks competitive.
So thinking low mid tier esque, even on a normal track condition kind of day.
Yeah, I'm thinking that they'll be positioning around about 12 to 13 on a normal day, and then they can break through with good pit stops into the top 10. And on a rainy day, they could be battling top 5 and definitely for some podiums as well. Do not count them out. I've seen their development already for next year, and they've changed so much from the 2022 car, but all in the right direction. It looks fantastic. So Williams are definitely on the up, and they're with having more money as well, with getting, was it 8 points in the Constructors' Championship? They get money there by scoring points. They also get more money from the cost cap being slightly extended next year, because this year it was cut down for the credit crunch. Next year it's opened up again, so they get more money to spend in as well. It's going to be helping them a lot with their development.
It's exciting times.
Yeah. Well, Brandon, I guess I'll pass a follow-up on to you here. We look at Sargent and, being at a team that, like we mentioned, hasn't had too much success in recent years. We talked about this on the wrap-up show yesterday. Do you think that with him not being at a top team, some Americans that might be brought in to the sport, if let's say he were in a Mercedes or a Ferrari or a Red Bull, they might look at him running towards the back of the pack with the Williams and maybe not be as interested in having an American on the grid as they might be if he was with one of the top 3 teams?
That could be a factor as far as the happy-go-lucky U.S. fan. Whenever they look at Formula One, they think Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull especially. And so that, as far as branding aspects, this will be probably a huge year for Williams to expand into the U.S. market. They're going to have the American driver. But, really, it's going to – I think right now, if you took a casual survey, the average Formula One fan in the U.S. probably knows those major top-tier teams. And then Williams, they may or may not know. You might have to get a more devoted fan or someone who's, in the smaller circle. But, yeah, I think this is going to be a big brand recognition as well for the driver. I think it will be a struggle maybe for the first year for people to latch onto it, but they might make a lot of Williams fans with Sargent as their half guy.
Yeah, well, I said on the wrap-up show yesterday that, comparing it to Rossi in 2015, that was a part-time basis for only 5 races. He lost out on the 2016 seat to Rio Harriento, and we can maybe talk about that dynamic here in a second, because I know somebody that finished ahead of Sargent and won the championship in F2 this year is not going to be on the grid. We'll get to that here in a few minutes. But, with Williams, they have the history, and I think they have a higher ceiling that they can claw their way back to, maybe not just in one season, but when you look at what Rossi was faced with Manor, the only way he was going to score points is if a couple of guys ahead of him at the crazy rain-affected U.S. Grand Prix that year had retired. There was basically nothing he could do. You could put Lewis Hamilton into a Manor or Vettel or Verstappen or any of those guys. They might be a couple of tenths of a second faster, but they were never going to, take that car to wins or podiums either. Whereas Williams here, while they haven't had the recent success, I think they have the capabilities to move up and have a brighter future ahead of them than Rossi would have had, even if he had gotten the Manor seat in 2016. So we'll definitely keep our eyes on that going forward. Now, to get into the sprint race recap a little bit, Sargent's path to the super license got a little bit easier right away on the opening lap when Enzo Fittipaldi and Jahan Daruvala collided on the opening lap of the sprint race. They were 2 drivers that were closest to him to overtake him in the standings. Of course, we're saying this, it was always very, very likely that he was going to get the super license regardless, but it did make his path a little more straightforward. Josh, I want to ask you, what was your take on that contact and that scary looking accident we had in the opening lap of the sprint?
Very, very scary. Long time for the red flag to come out as well, which was a surprise. Me and Cynthia were commentating on it, and we were saying it's an instant red flag. It was that type of accident where it was a sudden stop into the Tech Pro, and we knew it was damaged and we knew it had to be repaired. So the red flag took a long time. Race control were dithering about with it. But the actual accident was quite difficult, because it was the fact is that Fittipaldi started out on the outside line coming through turn 2, but turn 3 put him on the inside line because it's a swoop. So by the time he was going to get a racing line for turn 3, he cut across the front of Daruvala. Daruvala had nowhere to go. Daruvala was turning for turn 3, while Fittipaldi was trying to get on the right racing line for turn 3. So it was just an accidental coming together caused by Fittipaldi drifting across and Daruvala being in the wrong place at the wrong time. That put Fittipaldi sort of into a wheel lock with him. Fittipaldi just grazed across the Tech Pro and knocked off the front wheel, yes, but it was Daruvala who had the very nasty full speed hit into the Tech Pro. So Fittipaldi got out and walked straight up as well. And then when the red flag came out, and we all were very worried because Dreamer didn't get out of the car for about a minute and a half. Just checked over by the medical team. Standard things. Can you move your feet? Can you move your legs? Can you move your toes? Can you move everything okay? Is your neck okay? Is your back feeling okay? Can you get out of the car yourself? Yes, I can. Out you get. Walk away. Brilliant. But it was a very scary accident. We got very lucky there as well because actually I think it was kind of a commentator's curse as well because just for the lights went out, I said we'd have a great big pile up. Of course, we all remember what happened here in 2015 where we couldn't finish the race and after a crash at turn 1 and said they'll get through it cleanly and then bang, straight away, same thing happens again. But it was very scary and very dramatic, and the red flag took too long to come out. It's got to be quicker than that. It was at turn 9 before the red flag came out after sector 2, and the crash was at turn 1. So got to be quicker with that.
Well, one final note on Sargent here. I see another comment from A Day in the Life. Logan Sargent is talented. Do you perceive this notion that people would bring up the hypothetical comparison of Colton Herta with AlphaTauri? Josh, I don't know if you want to take that one as well.
I think they are going to... I don't know if that's going to be fair enough, to be fair, because Colton Herta, I think, was going to be with AlphaTauri before he couldn't get the super license points and couldn't get into Formula One. I think they may just say, oh, if Herta was in Formula One, he might go for that move or that move. But Herta is an IndyCar driver, and as I said earlier on, it's that expectation that just because he's good in one category of car, he's going to be amazingly good in another. And it's not that simple. Montoya was quite good in the beginning and then faded away as the cars got more technical. So there's that to think about. Villeneuve dominated at the beginning and then faded away after a couple of seasons. So I think Herta would come in strong, but then drift away. And remember, Montoya came in with Williams at a time when they went to BMW powered engines, so they were strong in 2001, but reliability was their biggest issue. It wasn't until 2002, 2003 that Montoya really started shining with the team. And with Villeneuve, Villeneuve came in with Williams as well. Villeneuve came in when they had Renault engines as well, and they were strong at the same time. They'd just come off having Hill battling in 94 and 95 against Schumacher and Frentzen. No, Frentzen wasn't there yet in 96. Of course, Hill started off with Senna, then he went to Coulthard as well. So Hill had Coulthard as his teammate. Then it was 96. Coulthard got replaced with Villeneuve. Villeneuve only came in 96 because Coulthard had signed a contract with McLaren, then 10 minutes later signed a contract with Williams, went to contract recognition board, and it was held up for Coulthard at McLaren. So it was sort of like a desperation that Villeneuve came into Formula One as the kart champion, proved he was quick, and proved straight off the bat he could win. But in those days, kart, IRL, and Formula One were very similar cars. Now they're not. Formula One has power steering, IndyCar doesn't. Formula One has, I know different, but Halo, Aeroscreen, different things, different power ratios as well. You pit for fuel in IndyCar, you don't pit for fuel in Formula One. So there's a lot of differences that Herta will take a long time to adapt to now, whereas Sargent's already had this adaptation through the F2 and F3 packages. So I think we're going to have to think of it as a separate entity. That's a long-winded answer, but it's a very crucial topic because he is a different entity than what Herta would be.
Well, guys, you know what I just realized? I think Herta was on 32 super license points of the 40 required. That's right?
Yeah. Yes.
So would it not have been possible? I believe you're allowed to do up to 10 FP1s, drive 100 kilometers in FP1 and get your super license. I mean, if AlphaTauri wanted him badly enough, could they not have just taken the last 8 rounds of a championship or whatever it was and gotten him his super license that way?
Well, actually, it's every 100 kilometers in a Formula One car you get a super license point. So there was actually nothing stopping them. Whereas Zandvoort was when we first heard the rumors, and that was round 14. So yeah, for the last 8 races, they could have put him in a couple of FP1 sessions and done 2 sets of 100 kilometers in that one session. It's easily possible because at tracks like, let's have a little thing, Monza, that's quite easily done quite quickly. Spa, it's a 7-kilometer track, so it doesn't take that long to do a couple. So they could have, if they wanted to, I do agree with you there, got him in. And also, super license points do carry over. So there was this thing where if Sargent didn't have enough super license points to start 2023, he could still qualify for a super license into 2023. So there's actually nothing stopping Herta doing FP1 sessions next year and getting a super license by round 9. There's nothing stopping him.
Yeah, well, I think if you go back to his championship rankings in IndyCar, I think he finished 3rd in 2020, which is where the bulk of his points are coming from. So I think a lot of his points are about to expire, because right now you're allowed to take 3 of your last 4 years because the pandemic kind of screwed things up in 2020. So some seasons were condensed or they didn't run or whatever. But I think most of his points come from 19 and 20, so they're about to expire. So he basically, as I understand it, has to win the championship next year if he were to do it solely in IndyCar. But I don't know. At this point, it sounds like he's signed this new long-term deal with Andretti. I think he's probably committed at this point, again, unless
he's got his eye on F1s. Yeah, he's got his eye on F1's Andretti seats, if that ever materializes, which has gone cold in the past couple of months. Now that's Sal Basol to Aldi. Aldi, keep doing that.
Yeah. Well, we haven't heard much on the Andretti Global story in recent months, so we'll keep an eye on that. But I would hope that we would look.
I'll have to fix my camera here just a moment.
Yeah. I would hope, like I was saying, I would hope that the whole Andretti Global thing would be allowed to go through. But you would have thought we would have heard more on that by now if they were making progress over there. So we'll just have to wait and see. Well, one driver who's only sort of getting an F1 promotion here is the 2022 Formula 2 champion Felipe Drugovich. Now, after finishing 9th in the 2020 championship and 8th in 2021, Drugovich dominated his way to this year's title, but will have to settle for a reserve driver role with Aston Martin in 2023 behind Lance Stroll and their new driver, 41-year-old two-time world champion Fernando Alonso. So, Josh, we talked about this a bit yesterday as well. Alonso taking up a midfield F1 seat in his early 40s when he could be fighting for the Triple Crown in IndyCar, among other things. Is it fair to hold Alonso responsible for keeping Drugovich off the 2023 F1 grid?
She's not here. I can talk freely. Just checking for Megan. You always know when she's around and you talk about Mr. Alonso. I think it is fair to hold him responsible because, as we discussed yesterday as well, it is that situation where Alonso seems to be holding back the younger F2 champions, held back Van Dorn at McLaren. Then he's held back Piastri. Then he's held back as well Drugovich. And it's getting a bit silly now where you can trace it back. I think there's even somebody saying that he held back Palmer when he came into Formula One as well. And he definitely held back Davide Valsecchi at Ferrari as well in 2012 when he was at Ferrari, because they were supposed to replace Massa in 2013 with Davide Valsecchi, and Alonso vetoed it, and that cost us a Valsecchi win as well. And Davide Valsecchi is a fantastic racer, so a bit disappointed with that. But for Drugovich, I do feel it's a bit of a kick. Yes, he's going to Super Formula League. Yes, it's a very quick formula, almost as quick as Formula One. But Drugovich has been absolutely stunning this year. We've talked about on this show as well, the fact that in Spain, doing the double, sprint and feature and pole position and the fastest laps, dominating that weekend, took such a hold of the championship. He had it wrapped up 2 rounds early. That is what we needed to see. And I do feel sorry for him that he's not allowed into Formula One next year because of Fernando Alonso. But the state that Aston Martin team is right now, I don't think he'd want to be in Formula One because he'll quickly get demotivated, he'll quickly struggle. And I think that a year as a development driver and racing in Super Formula will keep him match fit and get him in 2024 with another team that has a Mercedes engine will probably be better. But I do feel sorry for Drugovich because Brazil deserve a great F1 driver and Drugovich is a great driver.
Yeah, now that you mentioned like Aston Martin struggling there, it kind of makes me feel a little bit better about it. I wanted to hear what you had to say about it first, Josh, before I made my opinions on it. I grew to enjoy seeing Fernando Alonso when I, kind of learned about him over the years as he got into qualifying for the Indy 500 and was bumped out in that fantastic fashion in 2019. And so I've kind of just been observing him ever since. And it's kind of a novelty now to be that aged in, if you will, in Formula One and still have a a spot. And so it is. I didn't know that he had a track record also as well of dumping people out or holding it back, true talent back year after year. And Felipe Dragovic, my goodness, he deserves to be there. But at the same time, it's good to see that maybe this is, as some might say, a blessing in the skies or in disguise, that he's gonna have to wait a couple of years, and maybe when Fernando finally does decide to move on, perhaps to IndyCar with Tony Kanaan and the gang, then Felipe will finally have either a better Aston Martin team, or he'll have a better opportunity somewhere else.
Yeah, well, we've been talking a lot about Logan Sargent, obviously, and I think there's something concerning about the optics. And, I've got to be fair here, because I remember, being in high school as an American, watching Alexander Rossi finish second in the GP2 standings in 2015 and thinking to myself, well, how is it possible that Rio Harrienzo gets a seat when he finished fourth? Rossi had a better year statistically, but Rio brought the Indonesian oil money, and that was the difference there. But, that's not to say that Rossi wasn't deserving of a seat if there was one available somewhere. And of course, Josh, like you mentioned, Stoffel Van Dorn had to wait a year in 2016, ironically, when Alonso was at McLaren. And he won the championship by a mile ahead of Rossi and everybody else behind him. And yet there was no seat available for him. And of course, we just went through that with Oscar Piastri again this past year. And thankfully, he's going to have a seat next season in 2023, but Dragovic will not. And
he held back Magnussen too. Magnussen had a seat in 2014. Alonso came in 2015 and pushed him out. And then comically, Alonso got electrocuted in pre-season testing, and rumoured at this point, because we never actually knew the full story, woke up thinking he was 21 years old again and forgot that he's a world champion, and he missed the first two races. So, yeah, it was quite funny. The fact that he's got this track record of holding drivers back.
Well, that's it. He thinks he's younger than he actually is, and no one's told him yet.
There has been a rumor going around that the reason he's so willing to keep on driving, not because he still thinks he's 21 years old, it's because his body is still capable of keeping the muscle memory of a man much younger than him as well. So there's been a rumor going around that his body is like 5 years younger than his actual is. There's something weird, but who knows? That could be true. I mean, being electrocuted back in 2015 with that strange preseason test with the Honda power unit, anything's possible. We don't know what an electric shock would do from a power unit. I mean, we know that we've got these hooks of life, which have, if you see those, by the way, in use, it's not good news. But who knows what it was? And it was rumored to be an electrical issue that shocked him through the seat and knocked him out. That's why he crashed.
Wait a minute. Is this a superhero origin story we're listening to right now?
Yeah, Fernando Alonso, the driver who never actually physically ages and can always just race. He'll be 66 and with a Zimmer frame due to sitting in the Formula 1 car and still racing.
One day after an electric shock in the paddock, he became Fred Lonzo.
What did they used to call him? I can't remember.
I called him Fred whenever he was getting bumped in the 500.
That was it, yeah.
The Fred watch.
That was that was David Land's Fred Nando Alonso video with Cowcat and Bandwagon Kid, right?
Yes. That's my favorite driver.
Actually, just quickly, in 2002, this is the only time he's actually been relegated, because he raced for Menard in 2001, joined Renault or Benetton at the end of 2001, that became Renault in 2002, and got bumped for Jenson Button. Had to spend a year as the reserve driver and came back in 2003 alongside Trulli. So it has happened to him, and ever since then, he's bumped other people. Bumped Trulli.
He's getting revenge.
Yeah, bumped Trulli for Fisher Keller, bumped Fisher Keller back for Trulli, and then went off to McLaren, couldn't bumped Pedro de la Rosa, and then alongside with Hamilton, then went to Renault. Who was his teammate? Piquet. We all remember that. Dominic got me under the thumb with Piquet. Then he had Grosjean. Then he bumped. Then he left and went to Ferrari. Then he had quite a good relationship with Massa. Fernando was faster than you. Then he got Raikkonen. Then he left Ferrari, and that's when the bumping really started again by bumping Magnussen. Then he bumped Van Dorn. Then he bumped Piastri. Then he's bumped So many other drivers as well, with Dragovic as well. It's just insane. Might have missed one there.
Yeah, well, of course, I think, when Kimi did it into his early 40s, continuing to race, he was considered quite old for an F1 driver. Maybe not so old for, a NASCAR driver or a racing driver in other series, of course. And, Kimi's, we're all hoping to see him back in the Project 91 car again, because I think he kind of got a short end of that deal at Watkins Glen this year, not being able to see the checkered flag. But, your early 40s, by then, most drivers have moved on. And I think it's fair to wonder, even if Alonso still has the talent and certainly has the experience he can bring to the Aston Martin team, is there maybe something to be said for maybe you should take a step back and allow a space for the next driver to come in while you can go off and continue to race in other categories? And, the Triple Crown is sitting right there. That was my argument yesterday.
You hear veteran NASCAR.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brandon.
You hear veteran NASCAR drivers talk like that all the time. They see the talent coming under them and they know it's just time. And then some have the ego, or they know it's time, but they don't want to give up their spot. And this might be what we have here with Fernando Alonso.
I think I should give a gift to Fernando Alonso for Christmas of Cars 3. Just that. That'll tell it nicely.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we do have a race to talk about. I know we've been talking about the championship and everything. I guess we did talk about the opening lap incident a little bit here, but let's talk about the race weekend. Liam Lawson won the sprint race and took a podium finish in the feature, while Ayumu Iwasa took pole position for the feature and converted to a win despite a fierce charge from Dragovic in the closing laps. Their respective weekends allowed Lawson and Iwasa to jump from 3rd to 5th in the final championship point standings. So, Josh, how impressed were you with both Lawson and Iwasa this weekend?
Mega impressed with Liam Lawson. Became the sprint champion because he won 4 sprint races across the year. He was tied with another driver throughout the season, whose name escapes me at this point. But yeah, he became the sprint champion, 4 times a winner. Very good from him. I think we've seen Liam Lawson sort of improve this year a lot to deserve having runs in an F1 car with Red Bull and AlphaTauri. So he's a star for the future. Rumours that he's going to replace Yuki Tsunoda shortly. I can see that happening. But Ayumu Iwasa was fantastic in defending against Felipe Dragovic. Dragovic was properly going for it on the last lap of the features and was side by side, got ahead of him. Iwasa sent it round the outside, backed off, let Dragovic go back on the outside, swapped back on the inside, and forced Dragovic off the track at turn 9. Beautiful bit of defending, beautiful race from Iwasa, and very deservedly won. I thought it was a very chaotic and very brilliant feature race. It was actually a better F2 than F1 this weekend. So mighty good performance from them as well. And I think both have got good places in Formula One in the future. And I would also throw into the mix there as well the drivers such as Enzo Fittipaldi, who we've seen. He's been in F1 once before, but he's going to be incredibly good as well. That was Pietro. Enzo Fittipaldi is going to be in Formula One soon. Pietro too. I think we could see both of them being. That'd be fun, like the Schumacher brothers. And I just want to give a special shout out to Juan Manuel Correa as well, the American as well, another one in the team. But Juan Manuel Correa, absolutely fantastic. We all know what happened at the horrific Spa 2019 race as well, where Antoine Hubert sadly was killed, and Juan Manuel Correa was in very, very seriously injured, had to learn to walk again, had to learn how to drive again. He started in Formula 3 earlier on in the season, and then for the last round here, back in the F2 car, was just so emotional to see, and he did a fantastic job, and let's hope he'll be in F2 next season as well, because he deserves to be there. It was nice seeing him back.
No, well, I've just had another thought with the Fittipaldis. I think Pietro did those 2 races for Haas in place of Roman Grosjean, so he was born in Miami. Of course, they race under the Brazilian flag, the Fittipaldis do, but he was born in Miami, so he's the last U.S.-born driver. Yeah. Rossi's the last American driver. Speed's the last American full-time driver. Michael Andretti's the last American to score points, and Mario Andretti's the last American world champion, right? So you can keep going back 1 degree further. We'll see how much Logan Sargent can do, of course, going forward. And but the Fittipaldis as well, I think you got to keep your eye on both of them. I expected Pietro to have the Haas seat this year after Nikita Mazepin got dropped for obvious reasons. And of course, that didn't happen. It went to Kevin Magnussen. I'd say Magnussen did all right. He just kind of finished 5th on his first race back and took a pole position in a Haas, for crying out loud. I think he had a great season, but we'll see what Haas can do as well with Nico Hülkenberg coming in. That's going to be an interesting dynamic to look forward to as well.
I mean, Kevin Magnussen, I think, deserves our Underdog of the Year trophy for everything he did. That was some of the most outstanding bits of driving I've ever seen in a Formula One car. Constant points, constantly charging, a pole position as well, some great racecraft. Magnussen didn't look too shabby, and I think Haas have realised that experience over young guns is actually better. I still feel for Mick Schumacher, though. He was treated horribly by Haas, and I'm glad he's got the 3rd role at Mercedes for next year, because Ricciardo's gone off to Red Bull.
Mick will be back. I have full confidence eventually. He might have to take this sabbatical year, but I think he'll have a ride in the future again for sure.
He'll end up at Sauber in replace of Bottas or Zhou, and then he'll stick with them until Audi come in, and then he'll be their lead driver at Audi.
All right. Well, one final thing I want to highlight in the feature race was interesting watching the strategy play out. I woke up at 4 a.m. because I knew the stakes that Logan Sargent was facing here with the super license and everything. I wanted to watch it live and not have to wake up to the news. But there was a little bit of strategy playing out with Jack Doohan, who had the opportunity to make a late charge on fresh soft tires. Most of the drivers started on the softs, went to the mediums on their pit stop. Doohan did the opposite of that. However, shortly after exiting the pits, his left front wheel fell off, which put him out of the race. So, Josh, do you think he could have been in the mix for a podium or perhaps even a win if he hadn't had that wheel issue?
I'll tell you right now, he would have won the race. If he hadn't had that wheel issue, he would have won the race. He had an amazing strategy. It was very close. He would have come through the field quite quickly after being in the pit lane, and he would have got the win. And he was actually quite key because at that time of the race, after the pit stops, he was the last one to come in. He had the lead of the race, and at that point, Sargent was struggling. He was down in 9th or 10th, so barely in the points. And it was Doohan who, if he had not had that tyre failure, would have come through to win the race and would have actually cost the super license for Logan Sargent. And I was saying in the commentary as well, Sargent needed a miracle, and it happened with the fact that Doohan's wheel fell off as well. And it wasn't fitted properly, and it was very dangerous as well, coming back onto the track, that wheel. So big fine coming, I think, for Carling as well. But, or was it Virtuosi, one of the two? But very good news for Sargent, having a much better look and got back up into 5th and secured 4th in the drivers. And with the extra points he did with the free practice sessions, he got enough to claim the super license. So it was nearly spoiled by Doohan, but he just got through, did Sargent.
Well, I think he could have fallen back on the penalty points bonus he would have had as well, right? Because you get a couple of points for not having any penalty points in your license over the course of a season. So, I remember they showed that graphic up there, and he was 6th in the championship at one point. So I think it would have, again, the optics of it, it looks better if the guy finishes 4th in the standings and gets the F1 seat versus 6th and falls back on emergency super license bonus points, if you will. I don't know. They gotta do something with the super license system, because it just seems kind of, well, I mean, I think there needs to be a medium. I know we've had this discussion on the show before, but there needs to be, a medium between, NASCAR just kind of arbitrarily approving almost everybody versus Formula One. You need to check certain boxes in certain series on your super license and have to hit this magic number. I'd much rather see it evaluated on a case-by-case basis and see some consistency in terms of drivers with experience. But,
someone told me earlier on in the year that under this system as well, we wouldn't have had the names I mentioned earlier of Montoya and Villeneuve coming through. They wouldn't have qualified for the super license. So that's weird. We would have lost a world champion in 97. It would have been Schumacher. So I'm sure Michael is very annoyed at that fact as well. It's weird. They need to find it better. He would have been world champion in 97 if Heinz-Howard Frentzen finished 2nd. I'm going to check that out. While you carry on with the script, I'm going to check that out. Because I want to know now.
That's right, because Michael got disqualified after he drove into Villeneuve, who went on to win it. So
1997 F1 season, FA Cup, no, F1 season. I've been doing my notes. Here we go. So Villeneuve who won it, we know that. Yeah, Heinz Howard Frentzen finished second after Schumacher's disqualification. It was Coulthard in third. So Frentzen would have been the champion that year if we didn't have Villeneuve. So that's weird to think. So maybe Frentzen.
If we hadn't had Villeneuve, would Schumacher have pulled that move? And if he hadn't pulled that move, would he have not been disqualified? That's something to consider as well. I know there were a lot of controversies with Michael around that time. But
going on history, I think he would have pulled that move on Frentzen as he pulled it on Hill in '94. So I think it's safe to assume that Schumacher would have done the same to Frentzen as he did to Villeneuve and Hill.
All right, guys. Well, I know we were hoping for a shorter show tonight. I know we've gone over an hour several times before, but I know we really enjoy the conversation at the same time here. We're already past 45 minutes. But I do want to close with the one shining moment, as we always do, but not just for this weekend. I want to get your one shining moments for the entire season and all the different series.
That's not fair.
Well, hey, Joe did it to me on the wrap up yesterday. It's only fair that, and Josh, you were there.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about. So, Josh, I guess we'll start with you. What's your one shining moment from Abu Dhabi in Formula 2? And then you can take from Xfinity or ARCA. I know you love seeing Brandon Jones run all those ARCA races. That's got to be up there for you.
That's up there. That'll be my season.
What have you got for us? Give us your one shining moments.
Abu Dhabi one shining moment. One World Correa being back in the car. That was very emotional to see. Seasonal moment as well, was just the comedy of the driver changes in the Xfinity, having Cup guys run Xfinity and the constant moaning I did week in, week out, and nothing ever changes. And I still don't agree with it. We've been in the off season now for 2-3 weeks in NASCAR, and I still hate the fact that Cup guys can run the Xfinity series and go for those race wins, and it devalues Xfinity and the younger talent there. So that's my moment of the season. The fact is that I've sort of put myself on top of a hill now, and I'm going to have to sit here until it changes. But I agree, it's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. But I'll sit on the grassy knoll and just wait until NASCAR decide to change it. But they never will, because it's NASCAR.
Man, the whole season, that's still not fair. But I guess some of the biggest things, I can look back at 2022, some of the greatest things to happen, I guess. The announcement of Andretti Global still just screams at me as we'll look back at 22 and say that was the biggest thing to come out. Now, you may have different opinions, but also a Marcus and Ericsson Indy 500 victory was pretty cool. And then looking at the lower
pick a winner, by the way, just saying, I got that pick a winner.
You got that, okay.
A week in advance. I was asked on the USON qualifying show right at the end, who do you think is going to win the Indy 500? And I said, Marcus Ericsson will win the Indy 500. I think he's got the best race pace. We've seen him in practice. He's been testing high line, low line. He's been running in the pack. Marcus Ericsson will win it. Lo and behold, 7 days later, Marcus Ericsson wins it. Best pick a winner ever. Actually, I'm nicking that from you, Brandon. That's my moment of the season. I got the best pick a winner.
Okay, there you go. Isn't he the second Swede to win?
Kenny Brack would have been the first, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Yeah, that, and then I guess if I look back at the Xfinity series, I guess I'll stick where I started. I didn't want to be that guy, but Josh Berry had a really cool season. Okay. All right. We're done. Let's move on to next year.
No, I'm with you. Josh Berry's story has been absolutely fantastic. And Juan Mel Correa, as you mentioned, Josh, as well, that was absolutely incredible to see him back in a Formula 2 car. And he did a great job this weekend. I've got to give my one shining moment for this weekend, obviously, to Logan Sargent for finally making it officially official. And I know there was that cryptic video that Williams posted of him going into the room after the F2 race and presumably signing the contracts before it was officially announced today. Of course, we all knew that it was going to be announced at some point, assuming he got the super license. But in terms of the entire season, I think I got to give a call to AJ Allmendinger. You want to talk about another guy that had a fantastic season, even though he didn't get the championship. Won a bunch of races and has really reinvented himself with Kaulig Racing. And, again, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what he can do in Cup next year. I still would have rather seen him stay in Xfinity with 8 road courses on the schedule next season. I think that schedule's tailor-made for him. But I think the amount of fun that he's had at Kaulig, We'll see if the Cup schedule grind gets to him, but I think it's a much different culture over there than what he had over at JTG Doherty the last time he was in the Cup Series. And, nothing against that team or anything. It's just when you're running in mid-pack equipment, lucky to get a top 20 on certain weekends. I think it's not nearly as fun for anybody, whereas you look at what he's done with calling, not just in Xfinity, but winning the Cup race at Indianapolis last year as well. I'm looking forward to great things from him and the colleague team as we move forward here into 2023. And let's catch up on the chat here. I see Adam is back here. I'll agree, Ben. Logan Sargent going to F1 in 2023. My one shining moment. And Day in my life, I apologize. I think I might have missed yours from earlier. Kart was a level above the IRL when IRL switched to normally aspirated engines. Sad time for the Indy 500. I think that was right around probably the Villeneuve discussion, because, of course, he won it in 95 and then came over and won the World Championship in 1997. All right, well, that is going to wrap it up for this year and the Encore show. We'll go through the closing one more time. As always, be sure to follow us all on social media and the Grid Network as well. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you aren't already. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We're also streaming these shows on Twitch, LinkedIn, Facebook, and I believe we stream through Twitter as well. So make sure you can find us on any of those social media platforms. If you really liked what you saw tonight, you can take 5 minutes after the show, consider investing in our Patreon, and join Colin, Deshelle, Mark, and Robin. Your support means the world to us. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, it's what helps us get to more of these races like Casey's going to be at next year. Joe will be back at Portland. I'm hoping to join him once again like I did this year. That was a fantastic weekend for the Grid Network. Your support allows us to do more of that. If you'd rather make a one-time donation, you can buy me a coffee instead. You can buy coffee for your favorite on-air talent. Any amount will help us continue to grow our motorsports media outlet. Finally, visit our sponsor, public.com, the stock market social media home. The referral code GRIDNET, you see it on the screen right there. It's also in the description box below. That will give you a free $5 to invest. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends, make new friends, and use tools to learn how to invest in the stock market. I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and happy holidays coming up here as well as we get into the Christmas season and into 2023. Stay tuned for some more Grid Roundtables. I understand we're going to try to do a couple more of those on Fridays throughout the offseason. But until then, Josh, Brandon, do you have any final thoughts as we close out 2022 here?
Been a great year. Loved being on the Encore show, talking Formula 2, Formula 3, touring cars a couple of times, and Moto 2, Moto 3. Looking forward to next season as well. Going to be a lot bigger, a lot better, and hopefully I'll be at a couple of races as well next season locally. And just happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and a Merry Christmas as well going forward, and a Happy New Year. So it's going to be a lot of good times as well. And we'll be celebrating Thanksgiving over here in this household as well, watching the Thanksgiving Day parade and having a full-on Christmas dinner and watching some friends' Thanksgiving specials as well, which is good. Got a puzzle, actually. A friend of mine brought me a puzzle with Monica's turkey when she puts it on the head. So I'm gonna do that on Thursday as well.
Absolutely. And I've really enjoyed my first year here at the Grid Network. You guys have been so friendly and welcoming in, especially in the group chats and everything, and learned a lot this first year, and hope to learn even more and be more of an asset to the network going into 23.
Thank you both for your contributions to the show. It means the world to me. It's been exciting hosting a show for the first time this year. My second year with the Grid team has been absolutely fantastic. I'm looking forward to 2023 and what we can continue to build on. And I'm sure we're going to have many great moments next season as well. And hopefully you guys will continue to be a part of that for many, many shows to come. So we'll look forward to that. Hope you all will as well. So for Joshua Birch and Brandon Crossland, for Kobe Lambeth and Joe Samniego, for Casey Campbell, everybody involved with the Encore show, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your year. We'll see you next season.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDNET for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.